So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Brexit to blame for crazy chicken prices, say poultry industry, attack on the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister tried to blame, global shortages and all that nonsense, but clearly the experts in the industry said, "Nah, bro, that's not the case." This is actually insane. The amount, the cost of chicken is going to go up, and I myself are a man who enjoys eating chicken. So Brexit pressures are largely to blame for the soaring price of chicken, the British Poultry Council has said, rejecting Johnson's claim it was down to global energy prices, which obviously everything is global. Whenever there's a problem, everything is global. Whenever there's a good thing in Britain, it's just because of Britain. The Prime Minister said soaring supermarket prices were mainly due to international fuel supply problems, adding the cost of chicken is crazy. Surely we'll see that rise in the cost of chicken throughout the world though, right? Or at least throughout Europe, maybe? I don't know. The BPC fired back at Johnson by blaming post-Brexit trade barriers and skill shortages for the spike in production. So essentially saying like it's harder to import the chicken and also harder to find staff to actually process the chicken here. It is not mainly fuel that's the problem, as Prime Minister said in his Good Morning Britain interview, is everything input costs like water, labour, energy and feed are all up, said the BPC chairman. A spokesperson on Twitter, and that's true. That buying the feed, where does that come from? Does that come from the EU? If it does, it costs more. The energy bills in the UK are astronomical. Labour costs have gone up as well because the end of freedom of movement means labour is scarce, which means yes, people get paid more, but because the scarcity is so bad, there simply isn't enough staff to do these jobs because they are skilled jobs, butchers and meat processors. Citing ongoing Brexit pressures, the industry body added, combined with trade barriers, shipping delays for machinery, plus a skill shortage, vets and lorry drivers, this all adds a cost that has to be recovered through the marketplace. And I imagine with the vets that, they're either working on, normal, domestic animals like cats and stuff like that, or maybe they're at the border dealing with things over there because, the veterinary industry in the UK is privatised, so it's very difficult to get much done there when the government needs a lot of vets. We're talking about some of these other stories at some other point. Britain's largest supplier, a chicken supplier, Two Sisters, has predicted that food price rises of 15% will be needed to begin to cover increasing cost of production, and that's well above inflation. I think inflation's at around 8%, so they're saying chicken will go up by 15%, which is wild. Environment Secretary George Useless acknowledged the price of chicken and other fresh produce would continue to rise, but suggested hard-pressed families turn to value brands. You do realise, right, that there aren't many value brands of chicken. There aren't, the supermarket generally has like one or two ranges of chicken, so value brands don't really exist there. And if you want to buy value brands of like meals and stuff like that, well, that just has less, nutritious value in it generally. So it's just ridiculous. Rayner responded by tweeting, "Let them eat value cake." The Tories haven't got a clue. It's actually quite funny. The BPC said the government had repeatedly failed to acknowledge the need for a fair, quote, fair system to help UK producers since the Brexit withdrawal kicked in last January. Again, doesn't what do they want in terms of fairness? I don't get it. Said members had lost 85 million in chicken exports to the EU last year. That's predominantly because the EU are doing full checks on things like chicken, etc., SPS, vet, all that stuff, and it costs money. And the person importing the chicken would have to pay all of that, and they evidently don't want to, so they've looked further afield for suppliers. But the BPC mentioned because of unreciprocated controls, which don't make sense because unless they're saying that, well, it's easier for the UK to import chicken from the EU, they're struggling because of competition from the EU and also struggling exports. So that makes sense. Poultry chiefs called on the government to strike a veterinary agreement on sanitary and phytosanitary rules with Brussels to allow for reciprocal removal of checks from entering the EU from the UK. The unreciprocated part I found a bit weird, but the equivalency bit makes sense. That UK exports to the EU are struggling. Johnson remarked on the insane position people find themselves in the midst of this crisis. Why don't you do something, big man? Other countries have actually given, money to lower income families to help them out. Why don't you do something like that? Why don't you increase universal credit? Why don't you give an inflation rise to universal credit? And instead of, you can also increase the minimum wage, but also sending families direct help to deal with the energy crisis. Why don't you try doing a windfall tax? Why don't you do something instead of, oh, I can't believe these people have such, the prices are so crazy now, man. Well, if only there's something I could do about it, but I can't because that's more socialism. Come on, man. You're the Prime Minister of the damn country. You've got a stonking majority. Do something. He goes, whilst failing to acknowledge the insanity currently wrapped up in a blatantly unfair EU-UK deal, said a BBC spokesperson. It's not unfair. If we start doing full SPS checks like the EU are doing, that's going to push the price of food up even more. That's going to increase input costs even more. So I don't know what the BBC are talking about. They added, members now will continue to face burdens, costs that hinder fair competition until October 23. What happens after October 23? I thought the TCA won't be renegotiated until 26 or 24? I think it's 26, so it's very strange. What happens after 2023? I don't know. The Poultry Council is unhappy. Oh, I suppose that's when Rees-Mogg moves to a digital system, right? The Poultry Council is unhappy at the government for scrapping physical inspections on food coming into the UK from the EU until late 23, a move announced by Jacob Rees-Mogg. So those physical checks will never happen. They won't happen. The UK can't afford to do it. BBC Chief Executive Richard Griffiths said it proves that this government is not concerned with the rights and wrongs of fair UK-EU trade. It's not about fairness, it's about cost. Saying EU traders face a commercial advantage with no checks and can now expect that luxury until 2023, which is unfortunate, but if you've lost your export market, at least you can still sell stuff in the UK, right? So maybe it's more chicken to sell in the UK, so prices don't have to go up so much, I don't know. Mogg, who had previously claimed soaring food costs had nothing to do with Brexit, which obviously we know isn't true, admitted that the post-Brexit import checks planned for July would have seen price rises at the supermarket. He described the red tape as an act of self-harm, which is a Brexit red harm. The only problem with comparing inflation between different countries is the UK uses something called the Consumer Price Index, which is a certain basket of goods which the Bank of England can fiddle around with by using things like foreign holidays and watches and other things, rather than looking at goods that have actually gone up in price, like food, for example. The retail price index, I believe, is more accurate, but again, it's very confusing, especially when you try and compare inflation in different countries, because they talk about the UK inflation rate on average is about the same as the Eurozone, but I don't believe that's the case, especially given the retail price index is actually higher than the average inflation in the Eurozone. But anyways, I haven't, my mum buys the chicken normally, so if you're one of those people who buys chicken for yourself or for the family, if you're watching this video, can you tell us how much the chicken's gone up by? Because it sounds like it's going up by a lot, and it will continue to go up by a lot. I've seen other articles that say the price of chicken will go up nearer to the price of beef, for example, and beef is a lot more expensive than chicken. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.